The rain hammered against the window of the copper kettle, each drop a tiny drumbeat against Tessa's already frayed nerves. She was tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that seeped into your very soul after an endless double shift. Her feet ached, her smile felt plastered on, and all she wanted was to curl up with a good book and a cup of tea. But then, it happened. A sudden, jarring thud from outside, followed by a strained cry. A quiet evening shattered, and in that instant, Tessa, a simple waitress, was about to step into a life she never dreamed possible. What if a single act of kindness could unlock a world of unimaginable opportunity? What if the person you helped was more than they seemed? Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint scent of sizzling bacon in the bustling interior of the Copper Kettle, a cozy, if somewhat worn, diner nestled on the corner of Elm Street. Outside, the early evening light was fading, surrendering to a persistent drizzle that slicked the pavements and cast a gloomy sheen over the parked cars. Inside, however, the warmth was palpable, a comforting embrace against the encroaching chill. Tessa, nimble and efficient, wove through the closely packed tables, a tray laden with steaming plates balanced expertly on one hand. Her uniform, a crisp white shirt and a dark apron, was impeccably clean, despite the frantic pace of her shift. Her movements were fluid, practiced, honed by years of navigating the chaotic dance of a busy dinner rush. Her smile, though it occasionally wavered around the edges from fatigue, remained genuine, a reflection of her innate kindness. She approached table 7, where Mrs. Gable, a regular with an insatiable appetite for the diner's famous apple pie, was already waving a gnarled hand. "Tessa, dear, you're a sight for sore eyes. And speaking of sights, is that pie coming, or do I need to send a search party?" she quipped, her eyes twinkling. Tessa chuckled, placing a slice of pie, still radiating warmth, in front of the elderly woman. "Coming right up, Mrs. Gable. Wouldn't dream of keeping you from your favorite." As she spoke, her gaze drifted towards the large plate glass window, a habit born of years spent observing the street life of her small town. The rain was picking up, blurring the streetlights into hazy halos. A lone figure, an older man in a surprisingly thin overcoat, was fumbling with an umbrella near the curb, his silhouette momentarily outlined against the neon glow of a passing car. There was an air of distinguished elegance about him, even in the dim light, a stark contrast to the usual clientele of the Copper Kettle. A sudden, jarring crack echoed from outside, followed by a choked gasp. Tessa's head snapped towards the window. The elegant figure was sprawled on the wet pavement, his umbrella skittering across the slick surface. His brief struggle to regain his footing had been futile, a losing battle against gravity and the treacherous wetness. Without a second thought, Tessa dropped the empty tray onto a nearby bus cart with a clatter that drew a few startled glances. "Excuse me," she called out to no one in particular, her voice tight with concern. She was already halfway to the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. Years of working in customer service had ingrained in her a quick response to any sign of distress, but this felt different, more urgent. The man looked fragile, and the fall had seemed particularly hard. She burst through the diner door, the cool, damp air immediately embracing her. The rain, now a steady downpour, plastered strands of her hair to her forehead. "Are you all right, sir?" she asked, kneeling beside him, oblivious to the water seeping into her uniform trousers. She didn't hesitate, didn't think twice about the mud, or the rain, or the curious stares from inside the diner. Her concern was immediate and absolute. The man groaned, trying to push himself up, but a wince of pain stopped him. His face, etched with a network of fine lines, was pale, and his spectacles had slipped askew, giving him a bewildered look. "My ankle, I think," he muttered, his voice raspy with discomfort. He was impeccably dressed, despite his predicament. A silk tie still neatly knotted beneath his chin, though his overcoat was now streaked with grime. There was an expensive watch glinting on his wrist, and a faint, almost imperceptible scent of a high-end cologne clung to him, even in the rain. "Please, don't move," Tessa said gently, her trained eyes quickly assessing the situation. She had taken a basic first aid course years ago, a requirement for her previous job at a summer camp, and the lessons, though rusty, came back to her. His ankle looked swollen, a dark bruise already blooming beneath the thin fabric of his sock. It's best not to put weight on it until we know for sure. She looked around. The street was mostly empty, only a few cars splashing by. I'll call for help. Do you have someone I can contact? The man, still breathing heavily, shook his head. No need for an ambulance. Just help me get somewhere dry. My hotel is just a few blocks away. He gestured vaguely down the street. The Grand Imperial. Tessa's eyebrows rose almost imperceptibly. The Grand Imperial. It was the most luxurious hotel in the city, a towering edifice of glass and steel that symbolized opulence. It was a world away from the copper kettle, and certainly a world away from her own modest apartment. It was a place she had only ever seen from a distance, a shimmering symbol of wealth and power. This man, then, was clearly not just an older gentleman. All right, sir, Tessa said, quickly pushing the thought aside. His status didn't change his immediate need. Let's get you out of this rain. She carefully helped him to a sitting position, supporting his back. He was surprisingly light, perhaps due to his age, but also surprisingly frail, despite his distinguished appearance. His skin felt cool and clammy beneath her touch. My name is Arthur Pendelton, the man said, wincing as he tried to shift his weight. And you, my dear, are an angel. Tessa, she replied, a small, genuine smile finally breaking through her fatigue. Just Tessa. And no angel, just someone trying to help. She then called out to her manager, Frank, who had rushed to the door, his face a mask of concern. Frank, can you get me a towel and maybe a spare blanket? And call a cab, please. A big one, so we can get Mr. Pendleton to his hotel safely. Frank, a gruff but kind man who had seen Tessa through many a busy shift, nodded, already scurrying back inside. He knew Tessa well enough to trust her judgment, even if it meant her skipping her much-needed break. He knew her dedication, her unwavering sense of responsibility. Tessa carefully helped Mr. Pendleton lean against the brick wall of the diner, providing as much support as she could while trying not to cause him further pain. She gently retrieved his umbrella and his scattered belongings, a leather briefcase that felt surprisingly heavy, and a small antique-looking pocket watch. Her own apron was now soaked through, and her hair dripped with rainwater, but she barely noticed. Her focus was entirely on the man beside her. She had a brief moment of introspection, a fleeting thought about her own circumstances. Her feet were screaming, her bank account perpetually struggling to make ends meet. And yet, here she was, in the pouring rain, helping a complete stranger who was clearly from a world utterly different from her own. It was simply who she was, a deep-seated instinct to help, to care, to make things a little bit better for someone else, even at her own expense. She didn't expect anything in return, didn't even consider it. It was just the right thing to do. The taxi ride to the Grand Imperial was a subdued affair. Mr. Pendleton leaned heavily on Tessa, his breathing still shallow, wincing whenever the cab hit a pothole. Tessa, for her part, held him steady, murmuring reassurances, her free hand gently dabbing his brow with the towel Frank had provided. The faint scent of expensive cologne now mixed with the earthy smell of damp fabric and the antiseptic tang of the diner's first aid kit. She felt a strange sense of responsibility for this man, a fleeting connection forged in the unexpected intimacy of a street accident. As the cab pulled up to the imposing entrance of the Grand Imperial, Tessa's breath hitched almost imperceptibly. The hotel facade, illuminated by a myriad of tasteful, understated lights, gleamed like a jewel against the rainy night. Doormen, in impeccable uniforms, stood at attention, their expressions of polite aloofness melting into alarm as they saw their disheveled guest being supported by a rain-soaked waitress. The sheer opulence of the lobby, visible through the revolving doors, was breathtaking. Polished marble floors that reflected the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, ornate gold accents, and plush velvet seating. Arrangements. It was a world of hushed elegance and effortless luxury, a stark contrast to the familiar, slightly greasy warmth of the copper kettle. Mr. Pendleton, sir, are you all right? One of the doormen exclaimed, rushing. forward, his concern genuine. His crisp uniform seemed to amplify Tessa's own disheveled appearance, making her feel even more out of place. "Just a minor mishap, Johnson," Mr. Pendleton replied, his voice still weak, but a hint of his earlier composure returning. He looked at Tessa, his eyes filled with gratitude. "This kind young lady helped me." Tessa quickly deflected the attention. "He's fallen. I think he's twisted his ankle." "He needs a doctor to look at it, Mr. Pendleton." She felt a sudden awkwardness under the intense scrutiny of the hotel staff, who regarded her with a mixture of confusion and polite curiosity. She was just a waitress, covered in mud and rainwater, in a place where such things simply did not happen. Of course, Johnson bustled, already barking orders into a discreet earpiece. "Get Dr. Maxwell to the penthouse suite immediately. And a wheelchair." A wheelchair was swiftly produced, and Tessa, with surprising strength, helped Mr. Pendleton into it. She felt a brief, almost imperceptible squeeze of her hand as he settled in, a silent thank you. As the doorman took over, wheeling him towards a private elevator, Mr. Pendleton looked back at her. "Tessa, my dear, I won't forget this." His words, though simple, carried an unexpected weight, a resonant sincerity that cut through the polite formalities of the hotel. Tessa simply offered a small, tired smile. "Just glad you're safe, sir." She watched as the elevator doors slid shut, separating her once more from his world. She felt a sudden, profound sense of release. As if a great burden had been lifted. The immediate crisis was over. Now, her feet were truly screaming, and the chill of her wet clothes was beginning to set in. She still had to get back to the diner, finish her shift, and face Frank's likely admonishments for missing her break. She turned to leave, but Johnson, the head doorman, stopped her. "Miss Tessa, was it? Mr. Pendleton insists you wait. He wants to ensure you're compensated for your time and kindness." Tessa shook her head, a tired laugh escaping her lips. "Oh no, that's really not necessary. I just did what anyone would do." The idea of compensation hadn't even crossed her mind. She wasn't looking for a reward. She was just trying to help someone in need. It felt cheap, almost insulting, to expect payment for a simple act of human decency. "He's very insistent, miss," Johnson said, his tone firm but respectful. "He's not a man to be argued with, especially when he's grateful." He gestured towards a plush velvet armchair in a quiet alcove of the lobby. "Please, wait here. I'll arrange for a car to take you back to your establishment." Tessa, too exhausted to argue further, reluctantly sank into the luxurious armchair. It swallowed her in its softness, a stark contrast to the hard, unyielding stools of the Copper Kettle. She watched the comings and goings of the hotel guests, a silent, almost invisible observer. There were impeccably dressed couples, businessmen with serious expressions, and even a minor celebrity she vaguely recognized from a tabloid. They moved with an air of effortless entitlement, a world away from her own struggles. She felt a pang of something unidentifiable, not envy, but a distant curiosity. What would it be like to live in a world where falls on wet pavement were minor mishaps, quickly handled by a retinue of staff and private doctors? She quickly pushed the thought away. It was unproductive. Her reality was the diner, the tips, the aching feet, and the constant hum of worry about rent and bills. About 15 minutes later, Johnson reappeared, a small, discreet envelope in his hand. "Mr. Pendleton sends his regards, miss, and his deepest gratitude." He handed her the envelope. "A car is waiting outside to take you wherever you need to go." Tessa took the envelope, her fingers brushing against the crisp paper. "Thank you," she murmured, still feeling a sense of awkwardness. She didn't open it immediately. It felt too personal, too much like a transaction. Her act of kindness was not a commodity. The ride back to the Copper Kettle was quick, the taxi driver, instructed by Johnson, pulling right up to the diner's entrance. Frank met her at the door, his expression a mixture of relief and exasperation. "Tessa, are you all right? What happened?" Mrs. Gable was worried sick about her pie. He exclaimed, though the concern in his eyes was evident. "I'm fine, Frank," Tessa said, stepping back into the familiar warmth of the diner. "Mr. Pendleton fell. I just helped him get to his hotel. He's got a sprained ankle. but he'll be fine. You missed your break, you know, Frank grumbled, but there was no real anger in his voice. He knew Tessa. He knew she would always prioritize helping someone in need over her own comfort. Go on, take 10 now. You're soaked to the bone. Tessa nodded gratefully, her feet aching anew as she walked to the small, cramped staff room. She peeled off her wet apron and uniform shirt, pulling on a dry, oversized hoodie. It was only then, as she slumped onto the worn plastic chair, that she remembered the envelope. She pulled it from her apron pocket, her fingers still feeling the faint chill of the rain. She opened it slowly, half expecting a crisp $100 bill, maybe two, a generous tip for her trouble. But what she found inside made her gasp. It wasn't a few $100s. It was a single, crisp, cream-colored check, and the amount written on it made her heart stop. It was for $10,000. $10,000. Her mind reeled. It was more than she made in 3 months. It was enough to pay off her overdue utility bills, fix her sputtering old car, and maybe, just maybe, even put a small dent in her student loan debt. It was an unimaginable sum, a life-changing amount for someone like her. Her eyes welled up, a mixture of shock, gratitude, and a profound sense of disbelief. Arthur Pendelton had been more than just a grateful old man. He had been a benefactor, an unexpected angel in the rain. And Tessa, who had only offered kindness, had just received a gift that would reshape her world. She felt a strange surge of emotion, a mix of overwhelming relief and a new, unsettling sense of wonder about the unpredictable currents of life. She had simply helped point someone, and a universe, in its own mysterious way, had paid it back 1,000-fold. The $10,000 sat in Tessa's modest bank account, like a benevolent, watchful guardian. She stared at her online banking statement almost daily, the digits a constant source of wonder and a subtle tremor of disbelief. It was real. It wasn't a dream. The money had arrived like a sudden, unexpected rain shower after a long drought, washing away a significant portion of her immediate financial anxieties. She paid off her overdue bills with a giddy lightness, repaired her ancient, sputtering car, and even managed to put a small sum aside for emergencies. The relief was immense. A palpable weight lifted from her shoulders. Yet, despite the financial cushion, she found herself still reporting for her shifts at the Copper Kettle, the familiar rhythm of serving coffee and flipping pancakes, a comforting anchor in her suddenly less predictable life. She hadn't dared to spend it frivolously, the ingrained habits of frugality too deeply etched into her psyche. It felt too precious, too significant to be squandered. Days turned into a week, and the memory of Arthur Pendelton, the elegant man who had fallen in the rain, began to recede into the background of her busy life. She thought of him occasionally, wondering if his ankle had healed, if he was back to his distinguished routine at the Grand Imperial. But she never expected to hear from him again. Their encounter, she assumed, had been a singular, extraordinary moment, a brief intersection of two vastly different worlds. Then, precisely 1 week after the rainy evening, a crisp, ivory envelope arrived in her mailbox. It was thick, substantial, and bore the elegant, embossed crest of the Grand Imperial Hotel. Tessa stared at it, a flicker of apprehension mixed with curiosity stirring within her. It was addressed to Ms. Tessa Reynolds, her full name, a formality she rarely encountered in her daily life. Her heart gave a sudden lurch. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, nestled on a bed of heavy, expensive paper, was a formal letter, impeccably typed, and another, smaller envelope. The letterhead proclaimed, "The Pendelton Group," a name that immediately triggered a recognition deep within her. The Pendelton Group. She had seen that name on business articles, in financial news. They owned not just the Grand Imperial, but a vast portfolio of luxury hotels, resorts, and various other high-end enterprises across the globe. Arthur Pendelton wasn't just a hotel owner. He was the hotel owner, a titan of industry whose name was synonymous with immense wealth and influence. The realization sent a fresh wave of shock through her. Her eyes scanned the opening lines of the letter. "Dear Ms. Reynolds, on behalf of Mr. Arthur Pendelton, and with his express instruction, please accept this formal offer of employment within the Pendelton Group. Tessa gasped, a soft, disbelieving sound that echoed in her small, quiet apartment. Employment? Her? A waitress from the Copper Kettle? It had to be a mistake. She read on, her heart pounding in her ears. Following your exemplary assistance and profound act of kindness on the evening of date of incident, Mr. Pendleton was deeply impressed by your immediate compassion, clear-headedness, and unwavering dedication. Her immediate compassion, her clear-headedness, her unwavering dedication. These were not words she heard often, certainly not in the context of her waitressing job. She had just been herself. Mr. Pendleton believes that loyalty, integrity, and a genuine commitment to the well-being of others are qualities far more valuable than any resume or academic qualification. He observes these qualities in abundance within you. He observes these qualities. The words resonated deeply. He hadn't just given her a generous gift. He had seen her, truly seen her, beyond her uniform and her role. It was an acknowledgement of her character, a validation that touched something profound within her. She continued to read, her eyes widening with each line. Therefore, he is pleased to offer you the position of personal executive assistant to Mr. Arthur Pendelton, effective immediately. This full-time position will entail a 6-figure annual salary, comprehensive health and retirement benefits, and all travel expenses, domestic and international, fully covered. Your duties will include managing Mr. Pendleton's personal and professional schedule, coordinating his extensive travel arrangements, overseeing discrete personal projects, and serving as a primary point of contact for his various philanthropic endeavors. You will be expected to maintain the utmost discretion and professionalism at all times. Tessa's hand flew to her mouth, stifling another gasp. A 6-figure salary. Travel. Personal executive assistant to a billionaire hotel owner. It was dizzying, a complete and utter upheaval of everything she knew. Her life, once a predictable cycle of shifts and bills, was being offered a new trajectory, one that soared into unimaginable heights. It was almost too much to process. A dream plucked from the most fantastical quarter of her imagination and laid out on expensive paper, demanding her acceptance. Inside the smaller envelope, she found a pre-signed contract and a business card for Mr. Pendleton's chief of staff, a Mrs. Eleanor Vance, with instructions to contact her to arrange an interview. An interview? It felt almost redundant. The letter was an offer, clearly. The interview, she realized, was likely a formality, a chance for her to ask questions, to understand the specifics, to decide if she truly wanted to step into this new, dazzling, and utterly unknown world. Tessa walked over to her window, looking out at the familiar, unassuming street below. The Copper Kettle sign glowed faintly in the distance. Her old life. It was a comforting life, a predictable one, filled with the simple satisfaction of good service and genuine human connection. But this new offer, it was more than just money. It was an invitation to a different kind of challenge, a different kind of purpose. It was a recognition of something within her that she hadn't even fully recognized herself. Loyalty over resumes. Kindness over qualifications. Arthur Pendelton had seen something in her that no one else had, and he was willing to bet a 6-figure salary on it. The weight of his trust, the magnitude of his unexpected generosity, settled over her. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a profound testament to the quiet power of human connection, a ripple effect from a single act of compassion on a rainy night. And Tessa, who had always just tried to do the right thing, was suddenly faced with a choice that would redefine her entire existence. The interview with Mrs. Eleanor Vance was unlike any interview Tessa had ever imagined. It took place not in a stuffy corporate office, but in a private, elegantly appointed lounge within the Grand Imperial, overlooking the city skyline. Mrs. Vance, a woman of formidable elegance with an unnervingly sharp intellect, exuded an aura of calm authority. She wore a tailored suit of impeccable cut, her silver hair styled in a severe, yet graceful bob. Her eyes, a piercing shade of blue, missed nothing. Tessa, dressed in her best, albeit modest dress, felt a flutter of nervousness. She had spent the last 2 days oscillating between giddy excitement and profound apprehension. Could she truly do this? She, a waitress, managing the affairs of a billionaire? The sheer scale of it was daunting. Mrs. Vance, however, immediately put her at ease, her voice smooth and resonant. "Ms. Reynolds, please, have a seat. Mr. Pendleton has spoken at length about you. He is quite impressed." The word impressed seemed understated for a man who had offered a complete stranger a six-figure salary and a life of international travel. "Thank you, Mrs. Vance," Tessa replied, trying to project an air of composure she didn't entirely feel. "I admit, I'm still a little overwhelmed by the offer. It's very generous." Mrs. Vance offered a small, knowing smile. "Mr. Pendleton does not make decisions lightly, nor does he do anything without a profound reason. He believes in investing in character. He has always said that skills can be taught, but integrity and genuine compassion are innate, and he clearly saw those qualities in you." End quote. She paused, her gaze direct. "My role today is not to question his judgment, but to ensure you understand the demands of this position. It is not a typical 9-to-5. Mr. Pendleton's life is demanding, often unpredictable. You would need to be available at almost any hour, adaptable to changing schedules, and capable of maintaining the utmost discretion. His personal life, his business dealings, his philanthropic efforts, all require absolute confidentiality." End quote. Tessa listened intently, her mind already racing, weighing the pros and cons. The idea of constant availability, of a life without routine, was intimidating. Her current life, for all its struggles, had a comforting predictability. But the thought of a life of purpose, of genuine challenge, of opportunities to learn and grow, was undeniably appealing. She found herself reflecting on the mundane, repetitive tasks of her waitressing job, the aching feet, the endless parade of strangers, and realized that a part of her yearned for something more, something that engaged her mind in a different way. "I understand, Mrs. Vance," Tessa said, her voice firm. "I'm a quick learner, and I value professionalism. And discretion, I assure you, is something I take very seriously." She thought of the countless personal stories shared by her customers over coffee, the small confidences entrusted to her, always kept. "Excellent," Mrs. Vance replied, a flicker of approval in her eyes. "Your duties would be incredibly varied. One day, you might be organizing his itinerary for a summit in Geneva. The next, you might be coordinating with a specialized team to oversee the construction of a new orphanage he's funding in a remote village. It requires flexibility, resourcefulness, and a strong sense of initiative. Mr. Pendleton often operates on intuition, and you would need to anticipate his needs, sometimes before he even voices them." Tessa felt a surge of excitement. This wasn't just about managing a schedule, it was about problem solving, about navigating complex situations, about making a tangible difference. It was a far cry from taking orders and delivering food. "I'm ready for a challenge, Mrs. Vance," she stated, her conviction growing with each word. "I'm eager to learn, and I'm not afraid of hard work." She remembered the hours she spent studying for her summer camp first aid, the endless practice to perfectly balance a heavy tray, the meticulous way she'd organize her tips and bills to make ends meet. She applied herself to everything she did, even the mundane. Mrs. Vance observed her for a moment, a subtle shift in her expression, almost as if she were seeing Tessa not just as a candidate, but as a potential colleague. "Very well, Ms. Reynolds. We operate on trust here. Mr. Pendleton trusts his instincts, and his instincts regarding you are exceptionally strong. This role isn't about qualifications on paper, it's about a fundamental alignment of values." She then went into detail about the salary, the benefits, the travel arrangements. Each point was almost surreal, a distant echo of a life she couldn't yet fully grasp. "There is one final matter," Mrs. Vance concluded, her voice returning to its formal cadence. "Mr. Pendleton values loyalty above all else. He has seen your loyalty to a complete stranger, even at the cost of your own comfort. He expects the same level of commitment to him and the Pendleton Group. In return, you will find him to be an exceptionally fair, supportive, and generous employer. Your growth and wealth and well-being will be paramount." Tessa nodded, her eyes unwavering. "Loyalty is something I give freely, Mrs. Vance," when it's earned. And I believe Mr. Pendleton has certainly earned mine. She thought of the $10,000, the unexpected check, the profound relief it had brought. He had given her so much already, without expecting anything in return. That, to Tessa, was the true measure of a person. "Excellent," Mrs. Vance said, a genuine smile finally gracing her lips. "Then, Ms. Reynolds, welcome to the Pendleton Group." She extended her hand, her grip firm and warm. Tessa felt a profound shift within her, a quiet click, as the pieces of her new life began to fall into place. The overwhelming apprehension had subsided, replaced by a surge of nervous excitement. She was about to embark on an adventure, to step into a world of immense opportunity and profound responsibility. She would learn, she would grow, and she would apply the same dedication and compassion that had defined her years as a waitress to this new, extraordinary calling. Her feet might still ache sometimes, but her spirit, for the first time in a long time, felt utterly boundless. The rain-soaked street, the humble diner, and the simple act of kindness had indeed opened a door to a life she never even knew existed. And Tessa, the quiet, observant waitress, was ready to step through it. The initial weeks of Tessa's new role as Arthur Pendelton's personal executive assistant were a dizzying blur of new information, complex tasks, and a complete reorientation of her daily rhythm. Her elegant new office within the Grand Imperial, with its panoramic city views, felt both exhilarating and overwhelmingly vast compared to the cramped staff room of the Copper Kettle. She found herself immersed in a world of high finance, international diplomacy, and philanthropic endeavors that stretched across continents. Her first major project was organizing Mr. Pendleton's upcoming trip to Zurich for a global economic forum. It wasn't just booking flights and hotels. It involved coordinating with security details, arranging discreet private meetings with world leaders, preparing comprehensive briefing documents on complex geopolitical issues, and even researching the precise dietary preferences of various dignitaries. Tessa approached each task with the same meticulous attention to detail she had once applied to memorizing menu specials or balancing multiple orders. She made endless lists, cross-referenced schedules, and stayed up late researching obscure cultural protocols, her mind soaking up every new piece of information like a sponge. Mr. Pendleton, now fully recovered from his ankle injury, was a man of immense energy and a razor-sharp intellect, despite his advanced age. He was demanding, but never unkind, his expectations high, but always accompanied by a quiet, unwavering trust in her abilities. He rarely gave explicit instructions, preferring to outline a goal and allow Tessa to determine the best path to achieve it. This reliance on her initiative was both empowering and terrifying. She quickly learned to anticipate his needs, to infer his preferences from subtle cues, and to operate with a proactive, rather than reactive, approach. Her notebook, once filled with diner orders and mundane observations, now contained intricate flowcharts of international travel, detailed notes on Barash, philanthropic initiatives, and concise summaries of complex financial reports. It was still her constant companion, her external brain, a tangible representation of her rapid assimilation of this new world. One particularly challenging day, Mr. Pendleton tasked her with discreetly acquiring a rare, first-edition book for a private collector. The book was rumored to be in the hands of a reclusive art dealer in Florence. This wasn't a simple online purchase. It required delicate negotiations, cultural sensitivity, and an understanding of the nuances of the high-stakes art world. Tessa felt a surge of anxiety. This was far beyond her experience. She knew nothing about rare books, nothing about art dealers. For a moment, she yearned for the simple predictability of the diner, the familiar scent of coffee. But then, she remembered Mr. Pendleton's words. Loyalty, integrity, and a genuine commitment, qualities far more valuable than any resume. He trusted her, and that trust ignited a determination within her. She spent hours researching, diving into online forums dedicated to rare books, studying the art market, and even brushing up on her rudimentary Italian phrases. She learned about provenance, about auction houses, about the subtle art of negotiation. She discovered that the dealer in question had a reputation for being notoriously difficult and fiercely protective of his collection. Instead of simply making an offer, Tessa decided on a different approach. She learned that the dealer had a deep passion for Renaissance-era botanical illustrations, a niche interest. She used her newfound access to the Pendleton Group's vast resources to commission a renowned botanical artist to create a unique, exquisite illustration, specifically for the dealer, as a gesture of goodwill. It was a risk, an unconventional approach, but it felt right. When she presented her plan to Mr. Pendleton, he listened intently, a faint smile playing on his lips. "An interesting approach, Tessa," he mused, his eyes twinkling. "Most would simply throw money at the problem. You understand the nuances of human connection, even in the world of high-stakes transactions." "I like it." Tessa flew to Florence on a private jet, a surreal experience that still left her pinching herself. The meeting with the art dealer was tense at first. He was indeed as formidable as his reputation suggested, a man with piercing eyes and an air of intense scrutiny. Tessa, drawing on her years of experience in reading people and anticipating their needs from her waitressing days, remained calm and polite, patiently explaining her purpose. When she presented the botanical illustration, the dealer's hardened expression softened, a flicker of genuine appreciation in his eyes. He saw not just a potential buyer, but someone who had taken the time to understand his passion. The negotiations were still challenging, but the ice had been broken. Tessa, employing a quiet persistence and a genuine respect for his collection, eventually secured the rare book, not at the exorbitant price initially demanded, but at a fair and mutually agreeable sum. It was a triumph, not just for Mr. Pendleton, but for Tessa herself. She had navigated an unfamiliar world, relied on her innate understanding of human nature, and succeeded where others might have failed. Upon her return, Mr. Pendleton greeted her with a rare, genuine warmth. "Excellent work, Tessa," he said, his eyes filled with quiet pride. "You have a unique talent for seeing the heart of a matter, for understanding what truly motivates people. That is a far more valuable asset than any business degree." He then revealed another layer to his personality, a surprising vulnerability. He explained that the rare book was not for a client, but a deeply personal gift for his estranged daughter, with whom he had been trying to reconcile for years. The daughter, it turned out, shared her father's passion for rare books, specifically those with historical significance. Tessa's unconventional approach had not only secured the book, but it also, inadvertently, paved the way for a potential bridge between father and daughter. She had not only solved a logistical problem, but it touched a deeply personal chord, something far beyond her initial job description. Tessa felt a surge of profound satisfaction. This was more than just a job. It was a profound learning experience, a journey of self-discovery, and an opportunity to make a real, tangible difference in people's lives, both in the grand philanthropic schemes and in the intimate, personal moments. She was no longer just serving food. She was serving a purpose, guided by the unwavering trust of a man who saw her potential when no one else had. The contrast to her old life was stark, but she realized, with a quiet sense of certainty, that this was where she truly belonged. The comfort of the predictable had been exchanged for the exhilaration of the unknown, and she wouldn't have it any other way. Tessa's first year as Arthur Pendleton's personal executive assistant was a relentless ascent on a steep learning curve. She became intimately familiar with time zones, private jet manifestos, the subtle art of international protocol, and the even subtler art of navigating Mr. Pendleton's sometimes cryptic instructions. Her old uniform was now a distant memory, replaced by a wardrobe of professional, elegant attire, chosen with Mrs. Vance's discreet guidance that allowed her to blend seamlessly into the opulent world she now inhabited. She managed Mr. Pendleton's schedule with surgical precision, anticipating his needs with uncanny accuracy. If he mentioned a passing interest in Byzantine mosaics, Tessa would subtly arrange for a private viewing at a museum in Istanbul during his next European trip. If he expressed concern about a particular charity, she would have a comprehensive report on their financial transparency and impact compiled within hours. She learned to read his moods, to discern the unspoken nuances in his voice, and to provide solutions before problems even fully materialized. Her innate observational skills, honed by years of reading customers in a diner, proved invaluable in a world where unspoken cues often held more weight than overt statements. Her notebook, once a simple spiral-bound, had been replaced by a sleek, leather-bound journal, but its purpose remained the same. A repository of information, a mental map of Mr. Pendelton's vast universe, and a reflection of her own burgeoning expertise. It contained everything, from detailed notes on political figures to sketches of potential hotel designs, from reminders about his daughter's favorite flowers to complex logistical plans for disaster relief efforts. One evening, after a particularly grueling day coordinating a last-minute business deal across 3 different continents, Tessa found herself alone in her opulent apartment, a perk of her new position. She poured herself a cup of chamomile tea, her ritual from her old life, and sat by the window, looking out at the glittering cityscape. The quiet hum of the city lights, the distant sirens, all seemed a world away from the tranquil sounds of Elm Street. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment, but also a quiet reflection on how far she had come. The girl who once dreamt of simply paying her bills was now managing the affairs of a global magnate. It was a dizzying thought. She sometimes visited the Copper Kettle on her rare days off, slipping in unnoticed, sitting at a quiet table, and ordering a simple coffee. Frank would greet her with a gruff, affectionate nod, and Mrs. Gable would ask about her fancy new job, her eyes full of delighted curiosity. Tessa would offer vague, polite answers, never revealing the true extent of her responsibilities. It felt almost like stepping into a different lifetime, a cherished memory. She missed the simple camaraderie, the unpretentious warmth of the diner, but she knew she couldn't go back. This new life, despite its demands, was infinitely more fulfilling, more challenging, and more aligned with her evolving sense of self. Mr. Pendleton, in turn, demonstrated his continued faith in her in increasingly significant ways. He began to include her in highly confidential discussions, trusting her with sensitive information that even some of his most senior executives were not privy to. He valued her clear-headed perspective, her grounded practicality, and her unwavering loyalty. He saw her not just as an assistant, but as a trusted confidant, a vital extension of his own discerning mind. A significant test of her abilities arose during the planning of a new, ambitious resort project in a remote, ecologically sensitive region of Southeast Asia. The local government was notoriously corrupt, and powerful vested interests threatened to derail the project, which Mr. Pendleton envisioned as a model of sustainable tourism and community development. The project was riddled with ethical complexities, environmental challenges, and political landmines. Mr. Pendleton called Tessa into his office, his expression unusually grim. "Tessa, this project is paramount to me. It's not just about profit, it's about leaving a legacy. About proving that sustainable development can truly uplift communities. But the forces against us are formidable. Our usual BAS. Corporate negotiators are hitting brick walls. We need a different approach. We need someone who can see beyond the usual power plays. Someone who can find the human element in this mess." He looked at her, his gaze piercing. "I want you to go, lead the negotiations. You have my full authority. Do whatever you deem necessary, within ethical boundaries, to secure this project. I trust your judgment implicitly." Tessa felt a jolt of both fear and exhilaration. Lead the negotiations? This was a monumental leap, a responsibility that surpassed anything she had done before. She was not a diplomat, not a corporate lawyer. She was a former waitress. Yet, the unwavering trust in Mr. Pendleton's eyes ignited a profound sense of determination within her. She knew he saw something in her that she was still discovering herself, a resilience and an intuitive understanding of human nature that transcended formal titles and qualifications. She packed her bags, her notebook already filled with meticulous research on the region's culture, political landscape, and environmental concerns. She didn't rely on corporate playbooks. She relied on her own unique method of observation and connection. She learned about the local customs, the nuances of their language, and the specific concerns of the indigenous communities. She understood that brute force negotiations would fail. What was needed was genuine respect, a willingness to listen, and an understanding of their deep connection to the land. In Southeast Asia, the initial meetings with the local officials and tribal elders were indeed challenging, filled with suspicion and veiled threats. Tessa, however, approached them not with demands, but with empathy. She spent days listening, truly listening, to their concerns about environmental degradation, about the preservation of their cultural heritage, about the impact on their livelihoods. She eschewed the grand, formal presentations, preferring instead quiet, personal conversations over cups of local tea. She spoke not of profit margins, but of shared values, of respecting the land, of empowering the community. She didn't offer a corporate handout. She offered a partnership, a way for them to build a sustainable future together. Her empathy, her genuine listening, and her quiet, unwavering determination began to chip away at the layers of distrust. She found the key, not in legal clauses, but in human connection, in understanding their hopes and fears. She even discovered that one of the most resistant tribal elders had a deep love for rare, ancient textiles, a passion she subtly exploited by commissioning a local artisan to create a unique piece for him, not as a bribe, but as a genuine token of respect and appreciation for his cultural heritage. It was a gesture that spoke volumes, where words had failed. After weeks of delicate, painstaking negotiations, she secured the project, not through power plays or corporate might, but through genuine human connection, through understanding and empathy. It was a victory, not just for the Pendelton Group, but for the local communities who would now benefit from a truly sustainable development model. When she returned, Mr. Pendleton was waiting, a profound look of satisfaction on his face. "You did it, Tessa," he said, his voice laced with admiration. "You cut through all the noise, all the layers of bureaucracy and self-interest, and found the common ground. You showed them that integrity can still win. You embody everything I believe in." Tessa smiled, a deep, genuine smile of satisfaction. She had grown, transformed, from a quiet waitress to a formidable negotiator, an executive assistant who could navigate the complexities of global business and philanthropy with unparalleled grace. Her life was no longer about survival, but about impact, about using her unique abilities to effect positive change in the world. And it had all begun with a simple act of kindness, a helping hand offered in the rain, a testament to the unexpected trajectories of life when compassion leads the way. The journey was far from over, but Tessa knew, with a quiet certainty, that she was exactly where she was meant to be, continuing to learn, to grow, and to, in her own quiet way, make a profound difference. The success of the Southeast Asian Resort Project cemented Tessa's indispensable role within the Pendleton Group. She was no longer just Arthur Pendelton's personal assistant. She was his strategic partner, his trusted advisor, and increasingly, the inheritor of his vision. Her innate ability to connect with people, to understand their unspoken needs, and to find common ground where others saw only conflict, had proven invaluable on countless occasions. The word waitress was now an almost forgotten whisper in her past, replaced by hushed acknowledgments of her astute insights and quiet power among the global elite. Mr. Pendleton, now in his late 80s, began to visibly rely on Tessa more and more. He trusted her judgment implicitly, often deferring to her analysis on complex issues, even over the advice of his long-standing board members. He saw in her not just a capable assistant, but a kindred spirit, someone who valued integrity and genuine human connection above all else. He was slowly, subtly, grooming her for a much larger role, a fact that both thrilled and terrified Tessa. The weight of potential future responsibility, of guiding a global empire, was immense. One particularly poignant moment occurred during a quiet dinner at Mr. Pendleton's private estate. It was just the two of them, a rare occasion for a man whose life was usually a whirlwind of engagements. The soft glow of the fireplace cast long shadows across the opulent room. "Tessa," Mr. Pendleton began, his voice softer than usual, a contemplative quality to it. "Do you ever wonder why I chose you? Out of all the people who could have been my assistant, my confidant? Tessa looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude and a deep affection for the man who had so unexpectedly transformed her life. I assumed it was the fall, sir. The kindness. Mr. Pendleton chuckled, a warm, resonant sound. That was the catalyst, yes. But it was more than just that. I've had many people offer me kindness over the years, often with an ulterior motive. What I saw in you, Tessa, was pure, unadulterated compassion, no expectation of reward. And then, as I recovered, and as Mrs. Vance quietly investigated your background, I saw a history of quiet diligence, of unwavering responsibility, even in the most mundane of tasks. You took pride in your work, however humble it seemed to others. You didn't complain, you just did the right thing, consistently. He leaned forward, his eyes, sharp even in his advanced age, fixed on hers. That, Tessa, is far rarer than any Ivy League degree or corporate experience. That is character. And character, my dear, is the foundation upon which true leadership is built. I saw it in you that rainy evening, even as I lay sprawled on the pavement. I knew, instinctively, that you were someone I could trust with anything. With everything. With everything. Tessa felt tears prick her eyes. It was a profound validation, a confirmation that her deepest values, the quiet principles that had always guided her, were not just seen, but valued, profoundly. She had never sought recognition, only to do her best, to be a good person. And now, that quiet dedication was being acknowledged in the most extraordinary way. A few months later, Mr. Pendleton's health began to decline more noticeably. His movements became slower, his energy less boundless. He still maintained his sharp wit and keen intellect, but the physical toll was evident. During this period, Tessa became not just his assistant, but his anchor, his support system. She managed his medical appointments with the same meticulous care she applied to his business schedule, ensuring his comfort and privacy were always paramount. She read to him from his favorite books, engaged him in discussions about his passions, and simply sat with him in comfortable silence when words were not needed. One afternoon, as the setting sun cast a golden glow through his penthouse window, Mr. Pendleton called Tessa to his side. He was frail, his voice soft, but his eyes held a profound clarity. "Tessa," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've made some arrangements, necessary arrangements." He paused, taking a shallow breath. "I've been working with my legal team for months. My will, my legacy." Tessa listened, her heart aching. She knew this moment was coming, but it didn't lessen the profound sadness she felt. He had become more than a boss. He was a mentor, a friend, almost a grandfather figure. "The Pendleton Group," he continued, his gaze unwavering. "It is my life's work, my legacy. I have no living heir that I trust to uphold its values, to carry on its mission of ethical business and genuine philanthropy." He reached for her hand, his touch surprisingly firm. "Except you, Tessa. You are my true heir, not by blood, but by spirit, by character." Tessa's breath hitched. She stared at him, unable to speak, a wave of shock washing over her. "I am establishing a foundation, named in my honor, to oversee all of the Pendleton Group's philanthropic endeavors," he explained, his voice gaining a surprising strength. "And I am appointing you, Tessa, as its executive director, with a substantial endowment. It will be your mission, your responsibility, to ensure that my vision for a better world continues. You will have complete autonomy. You will have the resources. You will have the power to make a real, lasting difference on a global scale." End quote. He paused again, a faint, contented smile on his lips. "And as for the rest of the Pendleton Group, after careful consideration and a very challenging discussion with my board, I have designated you, Tessa, as my successor, the next CEO of the Pendleton Group." The words hung in the air, echoing with an unimaginable weight. CEO of a global empire. Tessa, the quiet waitress who had once worried about making rent, was now being asked to lead one of the world's most influential conglomerates. It was an ascent beyond anything she could have ever conceived. a transformation so profound it felt like a dream. "Me, sir?" Tessa finally managed to whisper, her voice thick with emotion. "But I'm just Mr. Pendleton cut her off gently. "You are more than just Tessa. You are everything this company needs. You are integrity. You are compassion. You are the future. You will lead with kindness, and you will inspire loyalty. You will do far more good than I ever could." He squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with immense love and unwavering faith. "Promise me, Tessa. Promise me you will lead with your heart. Always." Tessa looked at the frail, dignified man who had seen her, truly seen her, and given her a chance to realize a potential she never knew she possessed. She thought of the rainy evening, the simple act of kindness that had set this extraordinary chain of events in motion. She thought of her old life, the struggles, the quiet yearning for something more. And now, here she was, at the precipice of an unimaginable destiny. "I promise, Mr. Pendleton," Tessa said, her voice clear and strong, despite the tears now streaming down her face. "I promise." Arthur Pendelton smiled, a deep, peaceful smile. His eyes closed, and he drifted into a peaceful slumber, leaving Tessa with a legacy far greater than any financial inheritance. The profound trust, the boundless opportunity, and the monumental responsibility to lead a global empire with the very qualities that had once been dismissed as merely humble virtues. The waitress who helped a stranger had not just found a job. She had found her true calling, a destiny woven from compassion, loyalty, and the unexpected power of a single, selfless act. Her journey, born from a simple act of kindness, had reached its zenith, placing her at the helm of an empire, ready to reshape the world with the very heart that had always guided her.